Welcome to Beverly Hills View. I'm Josh Gross. Our guest tonight, LA Councilmember David Ryu. David, welcome.
Good to be here.
David, you were elected about 7-8 months ago. Very competitive election, which we'll talk about in a moment. But what's it been like being in office now for a little under a year?
Oh, it's been amazing. I really am thankful to the constituents of Council District 4 for allowing me this chance to serve. It is everything I thought it was going to be and more.
You represent a district that's adjacent to Beverly Hills, which is why we're having you on today. And you also represent the BHPO area. So let's talk about that for a second.
Sure.
BHPO, which of course our viewers know, includes Coldwater Canyon and Benedict Canyon. And both canyons, as you know, I've always complained about the traffic, particularly around the rush hours, traffic going in and out of the valley. What has your office done to alleviate some of those problems?
Well, first thing about the BHPO area, during the campaign when I was walking it, even the mapping isn't proper, meaning that on the map it says it's a through street when it's actually not. And I did personally try to walk in that area, but it was a lot difficult. I think I averaged about 2 homes in an hour.
You mean because you're going uphill?
I'm going uphill trying to hunt them down and trying to figure out where the address actually is. But that area, I think it's very pivotal. It's one of my budget priorities for this coming year, working with the mayor and my colleagues to get some more money to do traffic mitigations in the whole Sepulveda Pass area. You know, everyone is with all this new technology, which we're grateful for, but the unintended consequences are, everyone's trying to avoid the 405 traffic and going through our residential neighborhoods.
Sure.
So I'm actually meeting with the different groups in the area and taking suggestions for traffic mitigations, putting them together with traffic enforcement as well as the Department of Transportation and Engineering to see what immediate mitigations we could have.
Let's talk about the district for a second. It's, as you know, oddly shaped district, but it starts in the north in Sherman Oaks. It winds down the hill, picks up, as we mentioned, BHPO, Hollywood Hills, comes down in Hollywood a little bit and into Hancock Park. So basically those are the key areas.
Yeah, roughly. I mean, some people have described it as an upside down peace sign or they said a crab.
Right.
Or a lobster, I'm sorry.
Right.
So roughly, yes, it does go from Miracle Mile to the south, all the way up to Toluca Lake with all the communities in between, Hancock Park, Hollywood Hills, Hollywood, Universal Studios. And east and west, it's basically Silver Lake, Los Feliz Griffith Park, all the way across Mulholland Drive to Sherman Oaks. So it is a very vast, very large district.
How do you explain how you were able to break through in the primary? It was a very competitive primary with, 10 candidates or so?
14.
14, okay. And some very high-profile candidates, including Wally Knox, one of our friends who, of course, represented Beverly Hills for many years in the Assembly, Teddy Davis, others. How did you break through?
There was actually 19 candidates, 14 qualified for the ballot, and it was very difficult in forums, debate. You can't even actually call it a debate. It was more like a open session. And you literally had a minute to introduce who you are, how you're going to solve the budget, how you're going to fix infrastructure, and you had a minute to explain all of that. So it was more about meeting the voters. Fortunately, unfortunately, we knew it was going to be a low voter turnout. So the number one priority was to actually engage in the voters one-on-one. So because at their doors, when I get to their doors, I don't have a minute time. It's as long as they want to communicate with me. So I credit it to a aggressive ground campaign. I personally knocked on over 5,000 doors myself.
Wow.
That was the best part of the campaign.
Yeah. Candidates always love walking, but they take a little prodding to actually start doing it. But once they start doing it, they usually love doing it.
Actually, for me, that was the favorite part of the campaign. Because believe it or not, when you're walking, there's nothing you could do but just walk. You can't be on the phone.
Right.
You can't think about anything else. And the district that I represent is beautiful. The hills in the Hollywood Hills, Los Feliz, the overview of the Silver Lake Reservoir, Sherman Oaks, all the communities, the people are very friendly, the views are amazing, and it's the only time where I could actually be at peace and rest. And the other great thing was, because I walk so much, my diet during the campaign, I could have
you could eat anything.
I could have a Tommy burger at 2 a.m.
Right.
And I still lost 20 pounds.
Nice. And you get a tan too, so both two for one.
So,
what percentage of people, just out of curiosity, actually answer the door? Nowadays, a lot of obviously security gates and that sort of thing, but how many do you actually get through to the voter?
It was very, very amazing. If you talk to anybody who's ever campaigned, any elected official, when you're walking on a Wednesday at 11 o'clock, the odds of someone being at the door is maybe 10%. That's on average. Talk to anyone, they'll possibly say 20%. So for every 10 doors you knock, if you're lucky, you'll get 2. But for some odd reason, I was getting about a 40% hit rate.
Wow.
40, 50%.
Wow.
And it turns out in the district, I had a lot of stay-at-home moms, stay-at-home dads, a lot of consultants working from home, a lot of retirees. And when I say retirees in their 30s and 40s. So for some reason, and it was only just myself, I don't know, I try to walk the most difficult parts of the district, which also happen to be the most beautiful, like the hillsides. And I did try BHPO as well, but
Hold on, you may be the only candidate in history that's ever walked BHPO because, again, as we discussed, it's not easy to do that.
And it's not really walking, it's actually driving.
Would you have a driver and then you'd hop out of the car kind of thing? Or?
No, it was more effective for myself to drive my car, park on one side of the street, walk up the street on one side,
right, and
loop
then walk
around,
down
come
the,
back,
sure.
and come back to my car. But in BHPO, because the houses were so far from each other, like I said, and the maps weren't as great, where in an hour I hit 2 homes.
Interesting. Our guest is LA City Council member David Ryu. David, we had a friend of your office, a friend of you on the show recently. Let's take a look at this clip, get your comment. Zev, Councilmember David Ryu was recently elected, and the press has made a lot of comparisons between him as the young reformer, you initially as a young reformer. How do you think David's doing in office so far?
I think he's doing great. He's a little older than I was when I was first elected. I was 26, and David was 38 or 39, but he's been around. He worked for Supervisor Burke. I knew him when he worked for her. He's very smart. He's very eager. He has lived up to the promises he made during the campaign, some of which were very ambitious, far-reaching promises. And I live next to his district. I'm just outside of his district, and I see what he's doing, and he's listening to people, and he's trying to synthesize people's points of view, and he's a problem solver, and I think he's going to do a great job.
Well, some nice words from Zev there. What are you, a reformer candidate? How would you describe yourself?
Yes, that's all I'm about. I am all about reform. I ran on reform. Just to comment on Supervisor Yaroslavsky, I mean, it's great to hear those words from him. I mean, he's a mentor and a friend, an advisor. I'm even flattered to be compared to him, or even be in the same sentence. And I only hope I could accomplish half as much as what he has done. But he is someone I really look up to, and I call him probably on a weekly basis.
Yeah, a lot of institutional history there. Give us some of the advice he's given you in terms of governing and being a council member.
Well, first and foremost, even before I ran for office, I worked for Supervisor Burke for 6 years, but when I left, I had a close relationship with, of course, my legendary boss, Yvonne Burke, but also with Supervisor Yaroslavsky. During redistricting, during various cases, I would ask him, and he would say, always remember your constituency. Nothing else, always remember the people. And because sometimes I would say, why are you doing that? And he says, it's all about the people. So that was the most important thing. During the campaign, he said, everything else is chatter. Just continue what you're doing. And he made references, and he told me when he first ran, he wasn't supposed to win.
Not at all.
Everybody was against him.
Correct.
And he said, do
Hold on,
what
and he
you're
ran
doing.
a very heavy, aggressive walking campaign.
Yes.
They're very similar, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, during the campaign, when I was trying to seek his endorsement, and he said, no, David, I'm not going to endorse you because you're going to win this on your own. And you're going to do it. And of course, in hindsight, I thank him for that now. And, it may help me become who I am today. But I got to tell you, during the campaign, I said, oh, great pep talk, but Zev, I need your endorsement. But I truly thank him because what he said and all the advice that he gave me actually came true.
Sure. We'll talk about that more after the break. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, more with LA Councilmember David Ryu. We'll be right back.
Here's your check. Oh, you got it. Since I got rid of my car, I really enjoy walking.
Okay. Got it.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates.
Oh, you're home early. You live with your mom?
That'll set your game back a few years. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Congrats on paying off all those student loans.
Finally, right?
I'm kind of living paycheck to paycheck right now.
Well, have you tried saving?
Bill collectors, they're the worst. Am I right?
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org.
We're back on Beverly Hills View with LA Councilmember David Rue. So, Councilmember Rue, you had a controversial bill which you brought in front of the LA City Council to ban special interest money from LA City Council campaigns. And needless to say, this kind of got a frosty reception at first. What made you want to take such a controversial issue on right out of the gate?
Well, I think it's the core root issue about what I ran on. I ran on reform. And the reason why we need reform is because the fundamental problem is there's a lack of trust from the people to government and elected officials. And if you boil down everything that's happening today, from DWP to development initiatives, the basis of it is the people don't trust politicians, the people don't trust government. So campaign finance reform was something that was up in front and center, and I thought it was very important for me to introduce it, and and it was to start a dialogue, to start that discussion, which hasn't ended, which we're continuing. And people might say, "Wow, why are you trying to tackle something that's so huge? It's impossible." Well, everyone said I can't win, and my campaign was impossible. It's not about what's difficult; it's about what's the right thing to do.
You've taken a pledge to not take developer money, correct?
Yes.
How do you get over that? I mean, when you're running against an opponent who has tons of developer money, one would assume you're at a statistical disadvantage because of that. So how have you been able to overcome that by taking that pledge?
Well, and that's the thing. Resoundingly, when I was talking to the folks, individuals, the constituents of my district, their number one concern was development. But it was less about development. They were just upset with the process because they were saying, developers have all the say. They perceived, whether it's true or not, is what their perception was developers run City Hall. And how do they run City Hall? By donating to elected officials and being in their pockets. So it was clear to me, if I wanted to be the true reformer, if I wanted to be different, if I wanted to change that perception, I had to be different. And I made the pledge. And it was true. And I had multiple debates. Just because someone donates $700, which is the maximum donation in the city of Los Angeles, doesn't mean that I'm going to be bought off. But the mistrust, the gap and the gulf between the community and government is the fact that even if you accept $1, they don't trust you.
Right, and there's a perception that you're
There's a
bought.
perception.
Yeah, right.
So I said, you know what, it's going to be difficult, but I'm running for the people. I'm not running for special interest. I'm running for the actual voters, and I want the voters to know that it is possible. We can win.
Now, once you've, as we said, taken office, been in office, what's the single biggest thing that's different about actually governing and being on the council than you thought it would be when you were running?
Well, actually, fortunately, I work for LA County Supervisor Yvonne Burke. I am not new to government. I am not new to legislation and policy and public policy.
Okay, but the county is such a larger stage, and the council's smaller. So again, how do you affect change? How do you get things done with 14 colleagues on the board? They only have 5. So it's a very different dynamic.
And luckily, I'm suited for this job because I love chaos. I love the hustle and bustle. I loved working in the county, but the one drawback of the county was there are 5 members. Yes, the advantage is a lot easier to get things done.
Right.
All you need is 3 votes.
Right.
But there was not much politicking or hustle and bustling or public policy because all you needed was 3 votes.
Right.
Here you need 8. You
Right.
need 7 of your colleagues to go with you.
So by that you mean the bargaining and things that go on to get your 8 votes for whatever you want to do.
And it's exciting, and I revel in that. And it's about bringing all the different stakeholders and all the different interests and voices together, making sure that they're heard. Whether you agree or disagree with somebody, they need to be heard. That's what our process is. And that's what's lacking right now. People feel, we understand if you don't agree with us, but hear us out. And that's what I'm about.
Our guest is LA City Council member David Rue. Never a dull moment around here on Beverly Hills View. Lots to talk about. Uber has been a big and very controversial issue affecting the LA Council. Councilmember Koretz, who represents an area adjacent to us, has been very critical of Uber, very strong supporter of the taxi cab lobby. How do we balance the issue of driver safety, passenger safety, and get a pickup at LAX? I mean, I know we've got this pilot program going now where we do have pickups at LAX, but how do you think you balance those 2 interests?
And that's the thing. As a council member, it's my job to get to the root of the argument and the issues. I supported Uber and Lyft being at LAX, and I know some of the detractors, their concern was public safety. So if public safety is a concern, let's look at it all. Let's not just look at Uber and Lyft in public safety, but let's look at all our transportation platforms throughout the city of LA. Limousine service, shuttle service, flyaways, taxis. Let's put, and I fully agree, public safety is important. So let's have a universal throughout the city of LA, which I introduced a motion on, because I believed Uber and Lyft should be in LAX because giving our consumers more options. But public safety is a concern, whether you go in a taxi, whether you go in an Uber, whether you take a limousine service, whether you take a bus. Public safety should be the overriding factor, which is why in Transportation Committee I introduced a motion to say, let's look at it overall.
What are the issues coming up for you in your office in the next couple of months?
We're very much focused on the budget. This is budget season. March rolls around the draft. So we want to make sure fulfilling a lot of my pledges that I've worked on, from concrete streets to the traffic mitigations, localized traffic mitigations, especially in the Sherman Oaks, Sepulveda Pass area. The Rowena Road Diet, that is a hot button issue in my district as well as a flashpoint citywide.
Explain that to us for our local viewers here. What is that?
Oh, it's one of the many issues I inherited, and it was in place before I got in, but there's a strip of road in Rowena in Silver Lake, which instituted a road diet before I was elected, which means they're taking away car lanes and putting in bicycle lanes. It's partially for public safety, pedestrian safety, bike safety, but there's also a flashpoint because those who are against it feel that it increases traffic. So it's about bringing, again, and this is an issue that's divided 50-50. It's an issue where I'm trying to bring everybody together to see what additional mitigations that we could do.
Right. Hollywood sign, always a controversial
Hollywood
issue.
sign, yes.
Let's talk about that for a moment. And of course, our viewers here are very familiar with the issue because we have it in Beverly Hills too, with tour buses and passengers just coming to take pictures and so forth. But just briefly break down the issue for us. What is the issue in the neighborhood around the Hollywood sign, and how do you mitigate it?
So Hollywood sign is an issue that's been going on for a long time, but it could ease. But I think everyone will be in agreement. In the past 5-6 years, there's been a heightened additional traffic and tourism to the Hollywood, Beechwood Canyon, Lake Hollywood area to see the Hollywood sign, and there's a variety of reasons. There's the city of LA promoting tourism and promoting folks to go there, but I think one of the main culprits is also technology. GPS technology, internet, massive use of internet, and where...
And you mean the mapping software and that sort of thing?
If you plug in Hollywood, it will take you to the shortest route, irrespective of how narrow the streets are, what the traffic conditions are, and whatnot. So there's been a much higher increase in traffic there. Now you got to understand, Griffith Park, where the Hollywood sign is located in, is a public park. It is open to public. However, the amount of interest and the amount of visitors going there, the infrastructure cannot handle it. Like in the hillsides, as whether it's BHPO or other areas, we have substandard streets, very narrow streets.
Right. And they weren't designed to accommodate this level of.
They were not. As a matter of fact, it could be disputed if they were even designed to accommodate the amount of housing that currently exists. So my number one priority, that when I see the Hollywood sign issue, it is not a tourism issue. I support tourism, but it's not a tourism issue. It is not a neighborhood nuisance issue. There's urinating, defecating in lawns. Lots of smoking, illegal smoking, but it is not a nuisance issue. It is a first and foremost, a public safety issue. We have to clear those narrow roads for first responders, whether it's fire, ambulance, or police. And that's I've been meeting with the community, all the experts, the various departments from DOT, LAPD, LAFD, state, recreation and parks to come together to get all their ideas, all their solutions. Everything is on the table. From the Ferris wheel idea to additional viewing platforms to viewing sites, red curbing, whatever it takes. And we're coming together with a short-term, mid-term, and long-term plan.
Let's talk about the Korean American community, which you've very much mobilized, both on your campaign. You're the first high-profile Korean American elected official in Los Angeles. Why has that community not gotten more involved in terms of actually fielding a candidate until you?
Well, you know, I don't think it's uniquely about the experience of my campaign and the Korean Americans. I think it's the combined experience of the American experience. The Korean American community happens to be a newer immigrant. Yes, there were pockets of immigration over 100 years ago, but for the majority part, after 1965 immigration reform, that's when, like my parents, came in the late 70s, immigrated to this country. So the Korean American community is more of a first-generational community who are still trying to get integrated, who are still trying to learn. And it's the next generation who kind of steps up. This is not unique to the Korean Americans. It happened to the Irish. It happened to the Polish.
Italians.
Italians.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, Italians came before the Irish. So
Right.
when the Irish came,
Right.
the Italians were upset at the new immigrants.
Right.
So this is nothing new, and I think it's about empowerment. It's about community building, which happens throughout time.
Why local politics? I mean, there's a lot of things obviously you could do with your life and your career, particularly after having worked for Supervisor Burke and other things. Some people choose to go into the private sector, take a private sector position. Why local politics?
Because, as many have said before me, all politics is local. The president, I mean, we have a presidential election coming. You know, I'm a strong Democrat and a Hillary supporter, and I'm very excited that I think we need to elect the first woman president. But more than that, while the President of the United States is very important, more than the President, it's your council member, it's your local elected officials, your council member and mayor that affects your life the most.
Your day-to-day life.
Your
certainly.
day, because
Right, yeah.
it's standard of life issues. If everything goes well, you don't even know we exist. But it's potholes, tree trimming, trash pickup. It's the daily standard of life issues where you don't think about, but which impacts your life the most.
Tell us, how can constituents get in touch with you, particularly in the BHPO area? You want to just give us a shout out for your website, or how do they reach you?
Yes, just Google my name, David Ryu, which is RYU, but my website is davidryu.lacity.org.
And any kind of constituent thing, they can get in touch with you.
Yes, and I am trying to be as accessible. Because it's been 7 months, unfortunately, trying to schedule a constituent meeting might take a month because I'm so backlogged. But I'm trying to spend all of Thursdays are dedicated just for constituent meetings. I'm trying to free up other days, but I sit on 6 committees on city council. So and I have 3 field offices, one in Sherman Oaks, one in Hollywood, one in Toluca Lake, and of course my downtown office. So I share my time amongst all 4 offices. So I really encourage anyone who wants to meet with me to give me a call and try to schedule a meeting, or they could always meet with my deputies. But go to my go to my website. All my phone numbers are listed there. All my emails are listed there, and I'd love to meet with constituents.
David Ryu, keep up the good work.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time on Beverly Hills View.